Welcome. You have found the show we call Real Men Don't Cry, or Do They? This is a podcast for men, and on this show, we will hear real-life stories from men about how they have navigated the complexities of being a man in this modern day. We are going to look at the boys don't cry way of thinking and how that has influenced them and how they have risen above societal pressures to be true to themselves. The focus of this show is men's real-world experiences, not just ideas and theories. I hope that you will learn from what they have discovered and use it in your life as well. Let's get into today's show. Hello, I'm Brandon Archer, and this is another episode of Real Men Don't Cry, or Do They? I have, to date, he is going to be the youngest guest on here. Not that that matters, because it really doesn't. But he reached out to me, and I thought that was fantastic. Because I was thinking about it today before the recording. I've had a lot of people kind of in my age demographic, but I'm really interested to see his experience with emotions growing up and what he's learned, because it is a different generation. He's from a different generation, but I want to see his experience. I want to see the similarities and the things that have evolved since I grew up. So, welcome, Alex. How are you doing, man?
Good. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, thanks for reaching out. Why don't you give the 30-second, 60-second just synopsis of who you are and where you are?
Sure. I grew up in Chicago suburbs. I've got a younger brother and a younger sister. Taught school at Auburn. Did civil engineering. Once I got out of Auburn, started doing civil engineering work in Panama City, kind of transitioned to emergency management and have been doing that for the last 4 years. So really enjoy that. I mean, I would consider myself to be a very normal American kid.
Where's Auburn? I don't know.
That is Alabama.
Alabama, cool. And you are where now?
I'm in St. Pete, Florida.
And let's tell people how we met, because that's pretty interesting.
Yeah. So I was looking to learn a little bit about what a healthy relationship looks like. And I just started doing some Googling. I ended up coming across a website, did some reading, liked what I read, and reached out. So we ended up doing some work, probably, 3 months?
Yeah.
And then in the men's group.
Nice. Yeah, you were in a relationship and we met and it ended. Why did it end?
I think it ended because I had a very necessity for, I think, understanding my own emotions and being able to communicate them.
Interesting. So, what have you learned since then? Do you find it easier now? Are you more in tune with your emotions and what you need and what you want?
I think I have made so much progress, honestly. For a lot of my life, I spent a lot of energy in trying to hide or that I thought other people would judge me negatively for.
Where did you learn that from?
I don't know. I would guess from a lot of different sources. I think from a young age, you get told that you need to be a certain way, you know.
Well, what did you get told? What's your earliest memory of being, I'm going to use the word shamed for showing them?
Definitely, I don't know if I have a specific memory, but what comes to mind first is my mom just kind of reprimanding for acting a certain way, you know? I mean, yeah, I don't have much more detail than that other than just, this is how we act, this is how you have to be.
Where was your dad in those scenarios?
My dad was generally of us and kind of protective of me and my siblings, it would be us acting crazy and my mom would shut up, chill out, you guys need to calm down. And then my dad sometimes would swoop in and say, hey, like, just being kids, leave them alone, you know? So we did have that. But I think I think more so my dad was a little bit more passive and my mom was a little bit more reactive. So any little tiny thing, my mom would just, if it certain things, she would kind of react quickly, and I think it definitely taught me that I need to manage certain emotions, express certain ones, not express others.
How did you see that show up in romantic relationships? How did you see that affecting you in romantic relationships?
I think that really, holding back those emotions really keeps you from being able to connect deeply with someone
So
because
you were holding back in romantic relationships?
exactly.
Yeah.
And really any relationship. I mean, in any relationship, if it's work or if it's friends, I've always had this in the past, I guess recently less so, but you kind of have this idea of what you other people want or are going to expect.
In your adult life, have you been in a situation where you're like, really want to say this thing? I really want to tell this person how I'm feeling? Have you had that like internal dialogue but you hold back?
Plenty of times. Yeah. Yeah. I
And
think one that sticks out to me is when I was living in Panama City, which was right after college. I had just gotten a job there. Um, and I didn't really know any people in the area. Um, and there was a girl who worked at the apartment complex that I was staying at. And it was like one of those things where really wanted to say something and just didn't have it in me to do it. And something I judge myself very harshly for at the time.
and now do you have the awareness of like why those situations are hard?
I think, yeah, for me, the perfectionism thing, holding myself to that perfect standard, because I think in the past I had this belief that if I didn't show up perfectly, exactly how I thought I should or how I thought others thought I should, that I was going to get rejected, in whatever situation I might have been in.
Is there similarities with that and like how you interacted with your mom?
Nothing in particular comes to mind, no.
How do you interact with your mom today?
I think my mom and I have a pretty good relationship. I would say the only thing that I don't love about it is when it doesn't happen super often, but when she comes to me with issues about her and my dad.
Did she do that growing up?
Mm, It's a somewhat recent thing, maybe the last couple of years, but it's not super often.
What do you think? Why do you think she's doing that?
I think in the last 4 or 5 years, just in my career in work, I've really grown into leadership position. And I feel like recently it's also leaked out into my personal life.
Mm.
And I think I'm really showing up more as a leader with my family, with my friends, in romantic relationships. And so maybe she senses that and feels like, yeah, I can help. Like always wanted to try to help my brother, my dad, my sister, my mom, um, you know, get through struggles that I see them going through. Uh, Maybe things that I've gone through also.
So she's bringing you stuff about her and your dad, and have you had to set up any boundaries around that, or how have you navigated when she brings you that?
She hasn't done it probably this calendar year, so it's been at least 5 or 6 months. And the last time she did it, I probably couldn't tell you what a boundary is. So,
fair enough.
yeah.
So have you thought about what's going to happen next time she comes to you?
Yeah. And, I don't think that she realizes the impact that it has. And I wouldn't say that it's massive, but it's still something. And yeah, I certainly will communicate something along the lines of, this isn't my thing to fix. This is kind of your guys' relationship. I would be happy to help, but if you're just coming to me to complain, which is not always the case, but I don't think it's a healthy thing for me to act as my parents' therapist.
Probably not. Does she see you like you're a growth mindset guy? I don't know how else to explain it. Like when we work together, you just would grasp a concept and just run with it. And I'm like, holy shit. It was very interesting to watch you, challenge your beliefs and see if you liked what you and I were talking about and make your new kind of reality based on that stuff. So do you think she sensed that you're open-minded, that you're like rounded and kind of a guy who looks at stuff and
Yeah,
analyzes it?
yeah, she definitely does. Because I share stuff with them. Like, I started meditating when I was in high school, and self-help kind of books, growth, that type of stuff. Maybe now I wouldn't necessarily, not that I wouldn't recommend it, but it's, I guess, a place and time when I was younger. She almost doesn't really appreciate that, I don't think. Maybe not that she doesn't appreciate it, but she doesn't. I value it so much. I think it's just who I am as a person, and I love it. But like she said to me in the past, she's like, "I think you just kind of like self-help person." And I'm like,
How old's your mom?
she was born in 1970, so that puts her at
50,
54.
54. Do you
53, turning 54.
do
Yeah.
you sense there's like a generational look to that self-help / self-improvement
Yeah.
mindset?
Yeah. And I've actually, some of the things that I've learned working with you and just being in the men's group, I remember distinctly one of her responses was like, "Oh yeah, like her dad was never in the picture for her."
Mm.
And her response to some of the things I was telling her was like, "I don't think my dad not being there affected me negatively in any way." And I'm like, "Okay, I don't think that's physically possible."
Oh,
Uh,
that's
uh,
my mom is older than like closer to your mom's age than our moms are in age. And yeah, similar response from my mom. It's like, I just ignore all the stuff that happened. I'm like, I can't. It's not the way it works.
yeah,
You can
it's
choose
just
not to
not.
think about it, but it definitely affects you.
Yeah, it's just you know, it's like you can choose the pain of having to deal with having not dealt with all that, or you can just deal with it.
What do you know about your mom's childhood? Do you know much?
I know, like I mentioned, her mom raised her as a single mother. She was very poor. They moved residences all the time. Her oldest brother, she had two half brothers. Her oldest half brother was kind of a crazy person, like I think grown weed, less crazy stuff, right? And then the other half brother, who was older than her still, was much more calm and kind of, I think, served as her father figure in a way.
Mm.
Um, but my mom's childhood, that's like that all I know. And we never really got more details than that.
How much older was her older brother that acted as the father figure?
I don't know. I think maybe 10 years
And do you know him?
older. I did know him. He actually died he was murdered.
Wow.
Yeah, that was very traumatic. That happened when I was like 12. So that obviously had some huge effects in my mom's life,
Yeah.
I'm sure.
It can't not, like,
Yeah.
impossible, especially if and I could see with a 10-year, being 10 years older, him being fatherly. I had a younger sister who she's passed away. I think she was 8 years younger. And I definitely had like protective thing with her. So I can't imagine what it would do, if there was no dad in the picture. I imagine that would have been amped up. And I'm just touching on it because, we are a product of our environment. I don't really care what anybody says. I've seen too much. We have our own soul, and then we'll get programmed a certain way. So your mom got programmed a certain way, and then she used her programming to program you. So I find it just interesting, how her child affected you, but you're choosing to look at everything from a 10,000 foot, go, whoa, okay, what's going on here? And she's not receptive to the 10,000 foot view.
Not really. Like I try to have these types of conversations in like ways that are not intrusive.
Mm-hmm.
Like I don't want to feel like like at Auburn football games there are people outside of the stadium while everyone's tailgating with like massive signs that say Jesus, you need to repent, all this stuff. It's like very intrusive, and sometimes I feel like I'm doing that. It's definitely not to that extent, obviously, but I don't. It's not as though I get a ton of resistance in those conversations, but I don't really ever see any of them kind of acting on it, or super interested in it, or in pursuing it, or in continuing and really like diving into that type of discussion.
How does your dad react to it?
Just not growth mindset. Not growth mindset.
Do you think though, like, I think Will coined the term, maybe not. Will's a person in our men's group, by the way, everybody listening. The ripple effect. Do you think the way you're just showing up and learning these new things and pivoting your life, do you sense or do you see them doing any of that?
I think my brother, for sure. I think he sees some of the recent things in my life that have gotten a lot better. And I see him as being in a place similar to where I was when I was in Panama City, not knowing people, not really feeling good enough about myself to go out and meet people. Um, and so I do see him kind of leaning towards it. And let's see, this was around Christmas time this past year. My dad kind of sharing some stories about how his dad treated him when he was younger, and just having that conversation really shined light on kind of where my dad is at and where he came from for me. And I think even in just saying that, he kind of realized some of it too. So I definitely am seeing some ripples. Yeah,
That's fantastic.
it's awesome. Yeah.
What was what was his relationship with his dad?
The story he told us, which rings so true with how my grandfather acts today, is I don't know, my dad's like, say, 6 or 7. My grandfather has him working on his rental properties, fixing stuff up, doing manual labor, and he like was a can of paint or something. And my grandfather then takes him around. He was in this Germania Manicure, which is essentially like a drinking social club, I think, for German people, I guess. Um, and he's essentially like making fun of my dad, who is 7, to his adult friends about how he like built a can of paint, and oh, he's clumsy, and oh, how could he do this? Essentially just like toting around a 7-year-old and bullying him to other adults is kind of
Wow.
what it sounded like. And grandfather is very much I'm more manly than you. let me show you how much more manly than you I am. And actually just like bullying everyone around him. He's gotten worse as he's gotten older. When he was a little bit younger, it was kind of funny. He was very like comedic with it, but now it's like very abrasive.
What do you make of men in general that do that?
What would make a man do that?
No, what, like your opinion of men that do that? What do you, the growth you've experienced, the things you've learned in the last 6 months, 12 months? When you see a man doing that, what's your viewpoint on him and why he's doing that?
I think he's doing that because he doesn't actually believe that he is man enough. And so he's just going around and trying to prove it to other people. He's trying to prove it to himself, really. And he's trying to get validation.
Yeah.
That one's an interesting one because he's like, seems like he's trying to get validation from himself. Whereas I feel like a little bit more common is getting it from other people. But like the way that my grandfather acts, no one is ever like agreeing with him, you know.
I'm curious, what's his physical stature? Is he like all and?
Yeah, he was the biggest person in my family when I was growing up. He's like shrunk because he's older, but he was like 6'1", 6'2".
Yeah, so
and like played football in high school and was like gym teacher. He was very much into physical, like weightlifting and all that stuff. So he had getting older now, but he definitely kind of had a build to him.
So, I mean, the work you and I did together, we do inner child stuff. I'm listening to and I'm like, oh my God, it doesn't matter, if he's in his 70s, he's still a 5-year-old.
Yep.
He's still a 5-year-old seeking validation because, as you know, an embodied man doesn't behave that way. There's no man enough. It's like, it's not even a thing.
Right.
So when your dad shared that story, did he seem hurt? Did he seem still carries that?
Oh yeah. 100%. Yep. You could see it. You could feel it.
How did the family react to him sharing that?
I don't know if everyone else saw exactly what I saw. I think I kind of picked up on that, whereas I think everyone else was kind of like, yeah, we know grandpa's an asshole. But it's kind of a shocking story, really.
But I think, I can almost guarantee you there's going to be listeners that are like, oh, that reminds me of this and this thing that happened to me in my childhood, because we all go, holy fuck, that's not cool. But our parents do funny things at times that like just aren't good for us as kids. Like my version of that is camping trip with my uncle, my brother, and my dad. Middle of nowhere, government campsite. So there's no services. There's an outhouse way off. It's dark. I was probably like 8, I'm going to guess. Go to use that outhouse, come back, and my dad's hiding behind a rock and like so and shines 2 flashlights on me with his hands above his head and like making scary noises, and just everybody thinking that was hilarious. I'm like, how is that hilarious? He was probably drunk, most likely drunk. And, that sticks with me because it erodes our trust in our caregiver. You're here to protect me and you're trying to scare me. Do you have anything? Did your dad do anything like that?
Not really, honestly. My dad was very accepting of me and my siblings, way more accepting than I was of myself and my siblings. So I'm very thankful for that.
Yeah.
I think kind of my dad was a little bit more passive. So it kind of, I guess the issue for me kind of came up in a little bit of a lack of leadership and just that strong presence. And it's something that I didn't necessarily know that I was missing until, like I mentioned, I just kind of recently have kind of grown into that. And I've learned, reading books and learning from wherever else, like what people need in a leader.
So I got two questions based on what you just shared. First is, what did you get out of like an adult today? What did you get out of your dad believing in you?
That's interesting. I think it is like it has had a huge influence on, I think, the things that I've accomplished in my life, like success in school, in high school and college, and maybe finding the career that I'm in now. Uh, so at the same time, though, I feel like I had a lack of belief in myself for like my entire life, you know. So I don't know if maybe some more like guided challenge maybe could have served me better.
Yeah, that kind of touches on my second question is what was missing from your dad that you would have liked to have had?
I think that that guidance just of this is what it means to be a man. This
Mm.
is how we act. This is what we do. And it's funny to say that because I don't know if he knows, you know. And I think it takes a lot
Yeah, but
to
I
get to that
think,
place.
do you think there would have been value in him just sharing whatever he thought he knew?
I think there would be, because it would give me a point
Yeah.
to start.
Yeah, I relate to the no direction or the no, like, how do I do life? Like, what the fuck? Like, I'm a male. Like, I mean, in my 20s, I suppose I thought I was a man. At 40, I realized, oh my God, I'm a fucking child.
Mhm.
Dealt with that shit. But why I find this interesting, and I'm asking this, is my son's 19, and I sense he's looking to me for something. And he's even said, I think I showed you the video at one time, like, I asked him what made him happy, and he's like, that you're always trying to help me be a better person. It just doesn't get any better than
Yeah,
that for me.
so awesome.
Now, what I am struggling with is like, what does that direction look like? What does that guidance look like? Because it wasn't modeled to me. So I'm
Hmm.
not certain he needs. So that's why I asked, like, anything have been valuable? And I think the answer is yes. I think the answer is yes.
Yeah, yeah, I think the answer is yes too. Of course, getting the right. I think what's more important though than just sitting down and saying, hey, this, and this, here are these points, is just embodying it, acting like
Yeah.
the leader, being a leader. Like Jack shared in our group a while ago about how he addressed some kind of conflict in his extended family. And it was like the first time I had ever heard of somebody handling a conflict like that in an appropriate way.
Yeah.
And it kind of blew my mind. I was like, this is incredible. You're not running away from it. You're not having a huge tantrum. You're addressing it in an adult grown way.
Yes. Yeah, he showed up with giant size balls that day.
Yeah.
It was a massively display of authentic man being in integrity with his vows. It was he I've asked him to come on the show because he's got so many like in his life where he's like been the downtrodden man and the, weak feeling man, and then he just like steps the fuck up like that. So I'm gonna get him to share that story now that you've reminded me of it. You know what here's an interesting thing from I want your opinion on this. So I think I shared in the men's group, like, I finally realized with my son that I am afraid of his reaction when I set boundaries or when I push him harder or when I set up some structure that I know is beneficial for him. Would you have appreciated that from your dad, even if it was like irritating and frustrating at the time?
Can you give me an example?
My son works evenings. He starts at like p.m. to like midnight or 1 a.m. So his sleep schedule is kind of all over the place. But like, hey man, I need to be asleep by 2 so that you can do XYZ during the day. Hey man, you need to like wash your dishes as you use them. Whatever it might be.
It's so tough.
It would irritate the shit out of my son. I know that.
Mm-hmm.
And I know he would probably do it. And I know it would help him be a more well-rounded human being.
Mm-hmm.
But I'm curious, how would that have landed with you?
I think I did have a bunch of that. Like, I wouldn't say that
from your mom or your dad, though?
My dad. Yeah, my dad was actually like the enforcer. So I guess I don't know if that's incompatible with being passive, but
I'm curious, but it's your experience, right? Like, say your dad was passive, but what does that mean to you?
I guess I just didn't feel that he had that strong leadership. I don't know, something about that. But with my mom, she would say something, we wouldn't listen, she would allow it, and the dam was open after that, like we're probably not gonna listen most of the time until dad comes in, and we're like, oh shit, we know dad means business.
So I am massively curious, and you maybe can't answer it today. Like, sounding like a leader to me.
I definitely see lack of leadership in his relationship with my mom.
So is that more what you mean?
Maybe that's what I mean. Maybe that's because I'm looking at it obviously from my point of view now. And like I mentioned before, my mom coming to me with issues in their relationships. That could certainly be the case.
That would make sense. It's like, Dad, for you, this is where I'm at in my life, looking to build a long-term romantic relationship, and I have no template for how to lead this. So that would make total sense if you're like, I wanted him to model leadership in the relationship.
Yeah.
What have you learned about leadership in a relationship from him?
I feel like a lot of it is what not to do.
But that's still learning.
Yeah, that's true.
So what did you learn to not do?
Let's see. My mom tends to make decisions in the relationship sometimes. Not that she's leading the relationship, but I mean, an example that comes to mind is them moving out of the house that I grew up in. They both kind of want to do it. I think my mom is waiting for my dad to like go, we're moving. And my dad's like, let's move. And then it's like, he's not actually making the decision to do it. He's kind of putting it on my mom. It's like indecisiveness on both of their parts.
This is happening real time?
Yeah. It's not like a everyday thing, but it's like ongoing thing they've talked about like for 3 years moving. I'm like, you guys need to move. Why are you there? But it's also just my vision of it. I guess, what I'm trying to say is my opinion is that my dad should make the decision and say we're doing it, but it's my opinion.
Yeah, but I got a challenge for you. What's stopping you from saying, hey, Dad, I really think it would benefit you and Mom if you just made this decision?
So I have tried, and I think normally in the past when I make those types of suggestions, or they're not so much suggestions, it like gets to a point where I'm like, Dad, you need to do this. And I'm like, you're not yelling at him, but like getting there. And so that usually doesn't go very well. And my dad will tend to dig his heels in. He's right. He's right. He's right. Like it's not no budget.
So here's an interesting thing about leadership. And I get it. We look to our dads like, please be the leader. But what I have experienced as I've gotten older is I see my dad, this is very recent for me, as just a man, just doing life. And I wonder if you're at a stage in life where you can start to go, oh, he's my dad, but he's also just a man trying to do his best. And I wonder if there's a way, in the men's group, we elevate each other. And it could be a very simple, hey, I think you should do this for you and mom. And as you know, it's where it comes from. And my experience was when I'm still the scared little boy and I'm a little boy looking to my dad to be my dad, I couldn't bring the energy properly to say those things. But as I learned, oh, damn it, that little guy in me, it's up to me to be the dad and the mom and just deal with that shit so that I can learn to say those things to not just to everybody in my life with a different energy. So I'm challenging
100%.
you. I'm challenging you, man, because I know you can do it. I know you have the ability to do that type of thing. It's maybe not today or tomorrow, but I see it in you.
Yeah, I can see that happening too. And actually, an idea that kind of got posed to me was this past weekend. I was at my sister's graduation. Or I guess this was 2 weekends ago, actually. My whole family was there, and me and my brother were talking to one of my sister's friends' dads. We were talking about golf. My whole family golfs. And he was like, man, you guys should take your dad on a golf trip. We love that. And I was like, huh, that's interesting. Never considered taking my dad on a trip. We're going to go on a family trip. It's going to be Christmas trip. We all go as a family. But me and my brother and my dad all on a trip together.
Fantastic idea.
We could, that's a situation where I feel like I could actually get into real conversations about shit that matters, and actually have impact. And the bottom line is I just want him to love himself enough to where he feels like he doesn't have to do these things, and he can just kind of get to that place where he feels comfortable and can, I don't know, just I feel like his life and everybody's life could just be a little bit easier.
Yeah, it's a beautiful thing to want for your dad, man. That's really, really cool. Maybe he'll be there, get there, maybe he won't. But just a trip like that, you guys would just have a good time. Maybe you don't talk about deep shit. It would just be a good bonding thing.
Yep.
Okay, man, I got 2 questions for you to close this out, and they're not the ones you're expecting. You ready?
Let's hear 'em.
What message do you have for 30-year-old mom?
My mother at
Your
30 years
mom.
old?
Yeah.
I guess I would say to take a deep breath and, maybe just relax a little bit. I think, like I mentioned about my mom's childhood, I think that got her into survival mode and kind of put her into her masculine a little bit. And it's kind of been that way for her whole life. And I think, maybe just relaxing a little bit I don't want that to come off the wrong way, but relaxing into that feminine energy.
Nice. What message do you have for your dad when he was 30?
Believe in himself and just keep going. Keep learning.
That's fucking awesome, man. I love those. I love that. Alex, this was awesome. I didn't know what to expect. We went a path that just felt right. And I think people are going to get a ton of value about what we talked about here. So thanks so much. We'll see you soon.
Thanks for having me.
Thanks for taking the time to be here today. I honestly hope you found something you can use in your life. And I hope you found some relief in knowing that you're not the only one with challenges. We can be very isolated as men. If you don't have support in your life, please reach out to someone. It's okay to need help. It doesn't mean that you're less of a man. In fact, it takes a courageous man to know when it's time to ask for guidance. Until next time, brother.